When I was 21, standing half behind the chilly podium in the drafty St. Peter's Community Hall, I wished I had worn something thicker. Not for the cold, but for a hide, the kind you don't grow until you've already taken all your blows. My grey shirt, wrinkled from the bus ride, clung to me in a way that made me feel exposed, as if the seams alone were holding me together. Pastor Lee's voice was brittle as he called out, "And now we hear from young Johan Kim." Everyone turned my way. The people whose faces had cradled me since I fumbled my first hymn, Mrs. Moon with her pursed lips, Mr. Jin shifting in his chair, blended into a wall of eyes and silence. Sunlight from the stained glass butterflies painted the floor at my feet. I cleared my throat. My hands shook, so I balled them into fists behind the wood. "Thank you, Pastor." "I'm grateful to speak." My voice held steady, but my legs threatened to buckle. "I know many of you have been wondering what I plan to do after university." I tried a smile, but something in the room killed it. "Speak up, Johan," that was Uncle Chull 3 rows back, always the first to break a silence, and never with an invitation. I nodded, letting their impatience fill the space I dreaded most. "I want to be a robotics engineer. I want to build machines that change daily life, maybe even help in hospitals someday." A huff of laughter, my own mother, she couldn't help it, she tusked as she fiddled with the cheap gold cross at her neck. "Robots. That's cartoons, not a life, Johan." "Pipe dreams," Mr. Jin muttered loud enough for all to hear. "Doesn't he know how many smart children waste themselves in those silly jobs?" whispered Mrs. Han 1 pew ahead. I saw faces flatten in wary smiles. No one clapped, no one said, "We believe in you." The only sound was Pastor Lee's polite cough and the faint scrape of someone pushing discomfort around their plate, like leftover kimchi at lunch. When I stepped down, Aunt Sora trapped me by the elbow. "If you were clever, you'd try civil service. It's steady. This robot thing, you think you'll be the next Elon Musk. You'll come crawling back, you'll see." Her words were soft, but her grip strong. Outside, I tasted the sooty soul air. The blossom trees were blooming, ignoring us all. I was angry at their indifference, but envious too. I walked away, shamed and betrayed, but a seed of something hardened in my chest. I would outlast their laughter. I didn't go home that night. I took the late subway instead, tracing neon-lit windows and spiraling thoughts. By the time dawn dripped down the river and over the Han, I had resolved it. I would not let myself be reduced to their small imaginations. If they saw only jokes, I would turn punchline to proof. The years that followed dug trenches in me. I stayed in a tiny flat near Hongdae, where mold-colored corners and the window rattled in the wind. I scraped money-waiting tables at a chicken shop after school, eyes stinging from spicy oil and shame when church members walked in and pretended not to know me. Study, nap, work, repeat. Every night I built small arms and legs from electronics left behind at university labs and scavenged from repair shops. My landlord shook his head each time I hauled up a box of refuse. "Madman," he once growled, "what is this, a trash museum?" But by then, I craved construction over conversation. The first time I made a robot arm pour tea, it splashed boiling water down its mechanical wrist and onto my sketchbook. My own mother would have found it hilarious, I thought bitterly. In those moments, silence was easier. One sweltering night, my phone buzzed, a message from home. My younger sister had been accepted to a prestigious architecture program. "A real future," my mother's text declared, not without pointed contrast. I deleted the message, then spent the night troubleshooting circuits, fingers blackened with solder, sleep forgotten, as I chased the faint hope my dream still meant something. Every attempt was a lesson in humiliation. Sometimes the robots failed utterly, clumsy, falling, short-circuiting, huffing smoke over my stained books. Other nights they twitched but would never grasp or walk without jittering themselves apart. I missed 3 funerals and 4 birthdays. My friends became distant, their invitations withering to silence, but that loneliness hardened into focus. When I thought I could go no further, I remembered the murmured laughter in the church hall, how easily my people dismissed me. That pain was a razor, it forced me forward. My first break came during graduate school. I'd entered a competition with my friend Jaisu, a rehabilitation device small enough for a bedside table, gentle enough for elderly hands. Against glossy corporate-backed teams, we barely qualified, but our design was practical and worked well enough to impress one observant judge from a hospital foundation. "You've got spirit and sense," she told us. "But neither will matter if you don't keep pushing." We won second. That might sound like losing, but as I stood on the campus stage, holding a cardboard certificate, I remembered the wall of dismissive faces from years before. Second felt like a private revolution. Jaisu and I partnered up. We launched a small startup, living off ramen and caffeine, building prototypes by day and code by night. We failed a dozen times, almost went bankrupt, but kept improving. Our third design, a compact, affordable robotic exoskeleton for rehabilitation, caught the attention of a local biotech company. They invited us to demo at a national health expo. The first time the exoskeleton carried a paraplegic patient's weight and let her step forward, applause filled the air so dense it was like standing in the wake of summer rain. I held the handles at her side, my hands trembling as her feet traced stubborn lines across white linoleum. Reporters came, investors followed, we were suddenly unbelievably seen, my mother called the next morning. Your aunt sent me an article, is that really you in the news? Her voice teetered between awe and an old fatigue. I could almost picture her covering her mouth, half afraid to hope. Yes, I said, the word caught in my throat. Maybe sometime you could come home, show us. I agreed. I wondered whether in the end victory ever feels as sweet as you imagine. I worried it would wilt under the same old doubts. It was 3 years from the night of my community hall humiliation when I returned to St. Peter's, walking up the same stone steps I'd fled, only now my reflection watched me from poster boards at the entrance. Innovator returns, free community demonstration, rehabilitation robotics for everyone. The air inside buzzed with anticipation. Children fiddled with their phones. Elderly men and women in neat jackets sat with hands folded on their knees. At the front, my prototype stood, a gleaming alloy torso, flexible limb supports, a single black control pad, and not 1 ounce of shame. Pastor Lee squeezed my hands at the door. We're quite proud, Johan. Astonished even, he leaned close, his hug quick but sincere. My mother hovered nearby, eyes red-rimmed, smoothing my collar. Don't get nervous, just show them and let's end this talk. She could barely look at the machine. The program began, choir singing a hymn with more life than usual. The room was standing room only. I kept my words brief. 3 years ago I stood here and told you my dream. You laughed. Maybe you were right to doubt. I had nothing to show but an idea, but robotics isn't fantasy, it's hope made tangible. A ripple moved through the crowd, indifference, disbelief, or maybe just discomfort at owning up to old scorn. Today I'll show you what it can mean. I gestured to the exoskeleton. This is my colleague, Miss Park. She was paralyzed 2 years ago. Today she will walk. Miss Park rolled forward. Her father adjusted her shoulders, his own breathing loud in the cavernous hush. I knelt and attached the device to her legs, guiding each support into place. Her hands trembled as she gripped the handles. I pressed the central button. Motors whirred with a rising whine and the machine's joints locked into a practice sequence. Ready, I whispered. She nodded. I helped her rise, arm under her elbow. The machine shifted with her, bearing weight, balancing, humming like an insect beneath her skin. Step by step, she moved forward, left, right, slow and deliberate. Sunlight from the butterfly windows painted her steps gold. No one cheered until her third step, as if believing too early would break the spell. Then the applause broke loose, thunderous and raw, echoing off the choir loft. In it, awe and apology alike. I scanned faces. Mrs. Moon, tears streaking her rouged cheeks. Mr. Jin, mouth agape, hands moving together in slow, uncertain claps. Mrs. Han pressed a hand to her lips, eyes shining. Aunt Sora leaned forward, clutching her bag, cheeks red and wet. My mother sobbed openly, unashamed. The silence that had once condemned me had been shattered, driven out by the noise of proof undeniable and shared joy radiating from patient to spectator to me. Afterward, people surged forward. They wanted to touch, to ask, to remember that they'd known me all along. Each congratulation tasted of late-night ramen, crackling solder, missing birthdays, tears in my mother's voice. I was hoarse answering questions. But the only moment that mattered was when Aunt Sora pressed through the crowd, face twisted in something like regret. You really did it, she said, voice small. You proved us wrong. I glanced at the machine, now silent and stilled on its stand. I just needed you to see. She nodded, holding both my hands. We see now. Pastor Lee led a closing prayer, voice warm and full, no longer brittle with doubt. I watched the motes of dust swirl in light as the congregation bowed their heads for the benediction. Outside, the blossoms still fell, pink and soft over the old stone, each petal silent as resolve, and everyone a reminder that growth, even when unobserved, was never wasted. My people understood something about me now that they could never forget, and I, for the first time, felt the sweetness of coming home not as the joke among them, but as proof that their world could hold more than they dreamed. That night, as I lay in the small bed of my childhood room, I listened to the hush in the house, my mother's quiet breaths, the whisper of wind in the trees, and realized that sometimes redemption isn't about the world finally loving you back. It's about giving them the choice, and for once, not needing their answer to feel whole.